We're going to be starting again Surah Al-Falaq. Last time we had an incident where the lights went out, so we had to stop in the middle of the halaqah. But inshallah we'll quickly go over the stuff we talked about last week quickly, and then hopefully try to get through all 5 of the ayat in Surah Al-Falaq. If not, we'll save whatever is left for the next week inshallah. Again, Surah Al-Falaq, the period of revelation, there is a difference of opinion whether or not it's a Madani or Makki revelation, meaning was it revealed before the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina or after he migrated to Medina. And I can't say I figured out what's the dominant opinion, but both of these opinions are mentioned in the books of Tafsir. The opinion that seems to say it's a Madani, meaning after the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, is because of the incident of the apparent sorcery or magic that had taken place and affected the Prophet ﷺ. It was narrated by one of the companions who accepted Islam afterwards, and some of them have reported that it was revealed early on, but it was used, these surahs, these chapters were used as a means to cure the Prophet ﷺ from many different things. And again, because the incident that when the magic affected the Prophet ﷺ, there's only one ayah in this surah, one verse that talks about seeking refuge in Allah from the sorcerers or the magicians and things like that. So either way is acceptable, whether it was revealed in Mecca or in the Madani phase. Either way is acceptable. The names of the surah, it is called Surah Al-Falaq, which means the daybreak, when the day breaks, or it's also referred to as one of the Mu'awwidhatan. So this and the surah after it, the last surah in the Quran, together they're called Al-Mu'awwidhatan, meaning these are the 2 surahs, the 2 chapters of the Quran which are used to seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to seek protection in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from things that cause harm. This is the incident of the magic that had affected the Prophet ﷺ. We talked about this last week, but quickly just to review it. This is a narration that tells us what happened. So a man called Labid ibn Asim from the tribe of Bani Zurayq or Zariq worked magic on the Prophet ﷺ until he started imagining that he had done some things that he had not really done. So one day or one night he was with us and he invoked Allah and he prayed to Allah for a long time. And then he said, "Oh Aisha," to his wife, "do you know that Allah has instructed me concerning the matter I have asked him about?" He said, and he decides, he's telling her what happened. Again, he was feeling very anxious, and he thought he had done something, like a task, but he hadn't done it, and so on and so forth, so he was just feeling very anxious. So he said that one time at night in a dream, 2 men came to me, and one of them sat near my head, and the other near my feet. And one of them said to his companion, "What is the disease of this man?" The other replied, "He is under the effect of magic." The first one asked, "Who has worked magic on him?" The other replied, "Labid ibn Asim." The first one, that was the name of the person who had done the magic. Then the first one asked again, "What material did he use?" He said he used a comb and the hair stuck to it and the skin of pollen of a male date palm tree. The first one asked, "Where is that?" The other replied, "It is in the well of Darwan." So Allah's Messenger ﷺ, along with some of his companions, they went there and came back saying, "O Aisha, the color of its water is like the infusion of henna leaves, and the tops of the date palm trees near it are like the heads of the devils." I asked Allah's Messenger ﷺ, why did you not show it to the people? He said, "Since Allah cured me, I dislike to let evil spread among the people." So again, what happened was this person used some of the hairs of the Prophet ﷺ that was stuck to a comb of his to work some type of magic on him. And we know that these things are real. This is something that actually happens and it can be affected. And it works through the use of the jinn as well, right? Through the other creation that Allah has, which are the jinn, from which we have Iblis, the shaitan or Satan, and he and his armies, they help the human beings to work different kinds of magic on people through these types of means. And the Prophet ﷺ was affected by that to some extent. And this was in the bottom of a devil. And by the way, the narration, it says the date palm trees near it are like the heads of the devils, right? This is something that confuses people. What does that mean? Like the keruus shayateen, right? That the trees are like the heads of the devils. It's just an expression that is used to refer to something that is not pleasant to look at, right? Something that is kind of scary or not very nice to look at or kind of ugly. It's an expression to refer to that. I mean, it's a very creepy place, right? It's not some place you go to and you feel safe and secure. You feel very scared in that place. And the Prophet ﷺ had that well covered up because that is where the man hid this thing that he used to work magic on Rasulullah ﷺ. Again, the Prophet ﷺ in another hadith, he said to one of his companions, he said, "Say, qul." And he said, "What should I say?" He said, "Say He is Allah, the One, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ." And say, "I seek refuge with Allah, the Lord of daybreak," the first verse of this surah. And say, "I seek refuge with Allah, the Lord of mankind," the first verse of the last surah of the Quran. Then the Prophet ﷺ recited the whole surahs, and he said, the people have never recited anything like them, or the people have never sought refuge with Allah by means of anything like them. So these last 2 chapters of the Quran are used specifically to seek Allah's protection from all different types of evil and different types of people that may want to harm you as well. So we use these surahs as a means of invoking the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And again, the Prophet ﷺ said about these ayat, or this surah, what wonderful verses have been sent down today, the like of which has never been seen. They are قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, these last 2 chapters of the Quran, and this is narrated in the collection of Imam Muslim. And again, we talked about these 2 issues last week as well. The first one being, are these last 2 surahs actually a part of the Quran? Because there are narrations which people will use in the academic world to say there was difference of opinion between the companions of the Prophet ﷺ as to whether or not these last 2 chapters are a part of the Quran. And there's a few narrations that are ascribed this to Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, in which he said that these are only prayers that were used by, or prayed by the Prophet, but they're not part of the Quran. And the reply to that is that if those narrations are authentic, then at some point in time, that companion did have that view that no, these are just prayers, and he never questioned it or brought it up. But later on, he obviously understood that these were part of the Quran, and he himself included them as part of the Quran, because the oral tradition by which the Quran is passed down, especially the recitation that we commonly read, which is the recitation of Imam Hafs from Imam Asim, so we have the names of all these people. In that chain of narration is Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu himself. So this companion is also passing down the entire Quran just like everybody else, including these last 2 surahs. So even if he at some point said that they were not part of the Quran, he obviously later changed his viewpoint, and he understood that they were a part of the Quran. Some of the other scholars rejected those narrations, said they can't be authentic. Some of them say no, they are authentic, and this is how you would deal with them. The other issue was, how could the Prophet ﷺ be afflicted by magic and then that have an effect on him? Right? And this is something that the Quran mentions. He's not somebody who's a madman. He's not somebody who's affected by magic and things like this. So how could magic possibly have affected him? And again, the only way in which it affected him was the only way in which everything else affected him, and that was as a human being. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ was a man. He was a human being. He wasn't something he wasn't something supernatural. He was a man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he would be afflicted by pain, by worry, by grief, everything else that can afflict any normal human being. And so therefore he was also affected by this as well. And he was only affected to the point where it interfered with his regular everyday affairs, but not in his affairs as a prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because Allah himself is protecting that part of the message, and he will not allow anything to interfere in his prophethood. And the only things that are narrated is that he would think he had done something when he hadn't really done it, right? So it was just like little chores here and there. He would think he had, maybe gone and talked to this person, but he hadn't done it. So it even didn't affect him to a great degree, but it just affected him. It made him anxious a little bit, and it made him feel uncomfortable. But that was the only realm in which he was affected by, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it never affected, there's no narration that said he forgot to pray, or maybe he thought he had prayed but he hadn't prayed. It didn't affect his role as in any spiritual way, only in the ways that were just everyday things. So this leads us to the first ayah, the first verse of the surah, which is قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Right? Say, I seek refuge in the master of the daybreak. And again, like any other surah that starts, or any other ayah or verse that starts with the word قُلْ, say. The message here is that these are not my words. I'm being told what to say, to the point that I'm going to say the word say, because that's what's been told to me, right? So Allah, or the angel, comes with the message from Allah, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. Say, I seek refuge or protection in the master of the daybreak. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he speaks the Quran, he includes the command to say, because that is part of the Quran, and it's telling us this is something that's coming from somebody else. These are not his words. He's not saying this from his own self. He's only conveying a message that he has been tasked to convey. And a'udhu, which means to seek protection or to seek refuge, it means that when you fear something and you realize that there is nothing else that can protect me from this other than something or somebody else. So this is the kind of refuge you seek in things that can protect you from things that you yourself cannot handle, or you yourself cannot deal with. So you're saying, a'udhu, I seek protection because I can't deal with this myself. This is not something I can fight off with my own power, so I need the protection. And who are you seeking the protection with? بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. With the master, the creator, the sustainer of Al-Falaq. And Al-Falaq, linguistically, it means to split apart, to break. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions, إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَالِقُ الْحَبِّ وَالنَّوَى. It is Allah is the splitter of the grain and the date seed. He mentions this in the Quran. Right? يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَمُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتِ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. He brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living. Now, what does this mean? He brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living. Allah is telling us, showing us a very amazing thing that happens in this world. That life comes from things that are dead, and from living things come things that are dead, from which then life comes, right? So this is kind of interesting. They give the example of a bird, or you could even say like a fetus, or like a sperm drop in an egg, right? These are things in and of themselves, they're not alive. And they're not alive in and of themselves, but from them comes things that are living. And from those living things are produced these same things that are themselves dead, but they themselves will, in some way, give life. Right? So Allah says He brings out the living from the dead and the dead from... This is a very strange thing. You would think that from a living thing would come a living thing, but from a living thing comes something dead, which then gives life to something living. Right? So it's in and of itself, it's nothing. It's not a life or in and of itself. So He brings out the living from the dead and the dead out of the living. ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهِ, that is Allah. فَأَنَّا تُؤْفَكُونَ. So how are you deluded? How can you be deluded about your master, your creator? Then He says فَالِقُ الْإِصْبَاحِ. So the word falaq is being used here. The one who is the splitter of al-isbah, the daybreak, meaning when the curtain of night is done away with, when the first bit of light comes out, right? So it's like it's splitting apart. So فَالِقُ الْإِصْبَاحِ, He is the splitter of daybreak. وَجَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ سَكَنًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ حُسْبَانًا ذَلِكَ التَّقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. He has made the night for rest and the sun and the moon for calculation, by means which you calculate, days and times. That is the determination of the exalted in might and the knowing, right? That is the ability of the exalted in might and the knowing. So falaq literally means to split something apart, and is commonly used by itself in the Arabic language to refer to the break of day, right? Whenever the night separates itself from the daytime, that's called al-falaq. Some of the other opinions say that it's referring to the entire creation, meaning every single thing that exists, because everything that exists or is alive or comes into being from something that splits, which is an interesting point some of the Mufassirin have mentioned. I don't know how far we can go in checking the details of everything that exists, but the plants that come up, the seeds have to split open, right? The human is born from the womb of the mother, right? There has to be a splitting that's done. There's the world and how it came into existence in and of itself. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned in the Quran, right? That the heavens and the earth were one, فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا, and then we made them split. Right? So everything kind of that comes into existence has split apart from something else in some way, shape, or form. So al-falaq can also be used to refer to the entire creation. So either you're saying, I seek protection in the master of the daybreak, and there's a reason for that, or I seek protection in the master of all creation, because He is the one that owns and is in charge of everything, so He is the one that can give you protection from everything. Now, if it means the master of daybreak, which is the more common, the used term, al-falaq, referring to the break of day, why are we seeking refuge, and why are we saying a'udhu billah? When we read the Quran, we say a'udhu billah, I seek protection in Allah. So instead of saying Allah, why is the description of the master of daybreak being used instead of just the word Allah? Right? And because the rest of the surah, the very next ayah, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ وَمِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ, I seek refuge in protection in Allah from the night as it darkens, from the late night. And the rest of the surah is kind of referring to things that we're seeking protection from that happen late at night, or that tend to happen at night. So it's almost like you're saying, I seek refuge in the master of the daybreak. You're describing Him with that attribute. Why? Because the evil of the night, the escape from it, is when the day comes. And you can just see when you're standing outside and it's daytime, you don't feel anything, right? You feel fine, everything feels safe. But as soon as night comes and it's late at night and you're standing outside, that same place just feels a little bit more scary, feels a little bit more unsafe. Right? It's a very natural thing for us to kind of feel. So if we're standing outside the parking lot late at night, we might feel more unsafe than if we're standing outside the parking lot in the middle of the day. Right? So the day is kind of the time when we feel safe, and the night is when the various types of evil or bad things happen. So we're ascribing this description to Allah because we're talking about seeking protection from things that happen late at night. So that's why these words are chosen. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, say I seek refuge in the master of daybreak. And the next verse He says, مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ, from the evil of that which He created. The interesting thing to note about this is that we're not attributing evil to Allah. We're not saying that Allah is evil or that He is. We're saying from the evil of the things that He created. So whatever Allah Azza wa Jalla created, He created with the purpose of good, but those good things in and of themselves, that those things that are capable of doing good are also capable of doing evil. And therein lies the test for mankind, right? And for the jinn as well. But we seek refuge in the evil from that which He created, and that generally means everything that he created. Some other opinions specify this to Iblis, which is Shaitan, or the head of Satan or whatever, and his tribe, the purpose of whom their purpose is to misguide mankind. So, that's a more specific thing, and also some of them have said that this is referring to the hellfire, which is also a specific thing. But the wording is general, so the meaning is general. Min sharri ma khalaq, from the evil of whatever he has created. So anything that has the potential of harming us through evil acts, through bad intentions, then we're seeking protection in Allah from all these types of things. So it's a very general dua, it's a general supplication that we're making, right? And this is why they're used to seek protection in Allah. And then after this verse, there are 3 more verses, and then they specify 3 things that we're seeking protection from. The first one is talking about a time when evil is more widespread, which is late at night. The second one is talking about people who intend evil against others through like physical types of harm, right, which are the sorcerers or the magicians. And the third one are the people who intend harm against others through plotting and planning because of their jealousy. So they're the envious people, right? People that are envious and jealous. And we'll see what the descriptions of each one of them. So the ayah number 3, the third verse says, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ, and I seek refuge. So the continuation of the sentence is I seek refuge, and from the evil of the darkness when it settles. So this is talking about late at night. And the interesting thing is that late at night is the time when more evil is, or more things that are bad for us tend to happen, right? So even if you think about it in the modern sense, right? People don't usually go drinking and partying and all this kind of stuff in the daytime. They usually do it in the nighttime, and not even like the early night, but late at night, right? Is when it gets worse and worse and worse. And then because of that, you have other things that can happen, and you have people getting harming other people and so on and so forth. So evil tends to, or evil actions or evil attributes tend to take place late at night. Right? People are more secluded, or people are with specific groups of people, and so on and so forth. In the old days, it was that was a time when the robbers would come out and they would go and rob your houses or raid the caravans and so on and so forth, because people would be usually sleeping. So it was an easy time for people to harm others. And it's also an interestingly a time for the Arabs specifically when the dangerous insects and animals came out, right? So that they would also seek protection in the evil of whatever he's created. So even those animals and insects and things that come out at night and will sting you when you're sleeping, right? So they're seeking protection from all these types of things, especially in the late part of the night. So ghasiq means the night when it gets really, really dark. The Prophet ﷺ, he was with his wife Aisha radiallahu anha. He said one time to her, he said, Ya Aisha, ista'idhi billahi min sharri hada, fa inna hada al-ghasiqu idha waqab. Pointing at the moon, he said, O Aisha, seek refuge with Allah from the evil of this, for indeed this is al-ghasiqu idha waqab. Referring to the moon, meaning when the moon comes out and even the moon is about to go away and the night gets really dark, seek refuge in Allah from this time, be protected in Allah from this time, because that is when evil tends to happen. And then he says, وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ, and I also seek refuge in you from the evil of the blowers in the knots. Now this is something specific that the Arabs would understand, right? But for us it is kind of confusing. Who are these blowers in the knots? And this is a very common way in which people would use to perform magic or to cast these kinds of evil intentions outwards to harm other people physically in some way. And the interesting thing is that this is definitely real. If any one of you guys know that from the countries that we come from, this is a lot more common, and we hear this a lot more often, this happening, right? And again, this is something real which Allah mentions in the Quran. Sorcery is something real that can happen. So nafath is blowing without any spit coming out, and it's mentioned as part of evil that happens in the night, because the times where these kinds of sorcerers and magicians do their work is at night, right? And there are even groups of people from a specific part of the world, I don't want to say the name I guess right now, but from a specific part of the world that live this lifestyle of being filthy and dirty, because that's one of the ways of getting the attention of the jinn and so on and so forth, the evil jinn, who will then help you perform different types of magic and sorcery. So they live this lifestyle where they actually live, and they don't bathe for I guess for forever or something. They never bathe. They live dirtily. They live on on the shores of waters. They use dirty things to eat to around their houses and things like that. And these are the people that are associated a lot with magic in that part of the world as well. Even interestingly enough, I was just looking up, doing some research, which I don't encourage you to do, about how people do this kind of stuff nowadays, right? So you can find things about how people want to harm other people through magic in these times. And surprisingly enough, they still mention the tying of knots and blowing on knots. So they talk about you have to, if you want to harm somebody, then you have to work yourself up in a fit of rage. You have to get really angry, and then you tie these knots as you're saying these spells or whatever, these things you're saying, and you're saying these things and you're blowing on these knots as you're doing it. So interestingly enough, even now people are being taught to do this in order to try to cause harm and stuff to other people. Right? And this is something that you can find, but again, I don't encourage people to go look for this stuff, because this is not, this is creepy stuff, right? This is stuff talking about magic and using the shayateen and the jinn and all these kinds of things. This is creepy stuff. But, so the Prophet ﷺ was taught to seek refuge from this, and we know that the magic that was done on the Prophet ﷺ, there was a piece of string that had 11 knots tied in it. So when he was reading this surah, as every time he read an ayah from this and the next surah, which made up 11 ayahs, one knot would come undone and he would feel more at ease, because he was getting rid of the effects of the magic that were performed on him. So this is something real, this is something that happens, and we're seeking refuge and protection in Allah, because there's no other means of protection from this kind of stuff except in Allah. Because we have no means of really going about and stopping this, but Allah is the one that can prevent this from happening. وَمَا يُضَارُونَ بِهِ أَحَدًا إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. As Allah says, these types of magic will never affect anybody except only if Allah allows it to. Right? So we seek protection in Allah so that He doesn't allow this to have any effect on us. And there's a narration which mentions that sorcery and magic is one of the 7 major sins. There's a hadith in Bukhari which mentions اجتنبوا السبع الموبقات. قال يا رسول الله وما هن؟ قال الشرك بالله والسحر وقتل النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق وأكل الربا وأكل مال اليتيم والتولي يوم الزحف وقذف المحسنات المؤمنات الغافلات. The Prophet ﷺ said, avoid the 7 great destructive sins. These are the 7 things that are very, very destructive. Avoid them. And the word ijtanibu, it translated into avoid, it doesn't give the same meaning in English. Meaning ijtinab is a term for prohibition. Meaning these things are completely prohibited. You should be on the other side. So if they're found on this side, you should be completely on the other side. You should stay away from these to as much as you possibly can. And so they asked him, what are these 7 destructive sins? And he said they are to join partners in worship with Allah, right? Ashirk, which is the greatest sin, which is to assign any form of worship to other than the only one who deserves it, which is Allah, who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to join partners in worship with Allah. And the second one is to practice sorcery. The second one is to engage in practicing magic and sorcery, because they are used to harm other people, right? And we're not talking about these little tricks or party tricks that you see people do here and there. We're talking about the real deal, the real type of magic and sorcery by which you use, the jinn and so on and so forth to cause harm to people. The third one he mentioned was to kill a life which Allah has forbidden except for a lawful reason, to consume riba, which is interest, right? Interest and usury, these are things that are prohibited. To eat up the property of an orphan, meaning if you're entrusted with the wealth of an orphan that you're taking care of, to use that wealth for your own benefit, this is something which is a huge sin. It's called a great destructive sin. When you're responsible for somebody else's wealth, you need to take care of it. And also to give one's back to the enemy and fleeing from the battlefield at the time of fighting, meaning when you're needed most and you turn and run away, that's a great sin. And also to falsely accuse chaste, innocent, and believing women of immoralities. Right? To say that so-and-so or such as a person has done something wrong, and she is a chaste, pious, believing woman, to accuse people falsely, especially women, it is considered a great destructive sin, meaning this is going to be destructive to the one person. The connection here again is that the second sin he mentioned after worshiping others with Allah is sorcery itself. So it's a huge, huge major sin, and we need to make sure we're nowhere near it. And the last ayah is وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. And we're also seeking protection in Allah from the evil of the envious person when he envies, the moment that he has envy fill his heart. And some of the scholars, Imam Ibn Ashur, he mentions that the time when envious feelings arise more are at night. They're still at this night time, when people are by themselves, they're relaxing from their day, and then they can think about all the things that are causing them to be jealous and envious in some person in their life. And then all these thoughts are just coming up in their mind and their heart, and then they start planning and plotting about what they could possibly do to harm the other person. So this hasad, the word hasad that's used for envy, there are 2 words that are used for envy or jealous feelings in Arabic. There are more than that, but the 2 in specific. One is hasad, which is a prohibited type of envy, and one is a permissible type of envy, and it's called al-ghibta. Ghibta is a permissible type of envy, and the difference is this. So hasad is the desire that a blessing that somebody else has be taken away, or that he loses it, right? That you want this person not to have this thing, regardless of whether or not you want it for yourself or you don't, right? So a simple example is that somebody drives by and they have a nice car, and then you start wishing, man, I wish that car wrecks, that he loses that car, that he loses all his wealth. So that kind of, because of the jealousy, you start wishing and desiring that the other person loses what they have. This is called hasad, and this is prohibited, right? This is completely prohibited. We are not allowed to even feel this way about other people, right? So this is the kind of jealousy which is prohibited, because this can possibly lead people to take steps to ensure that the person loses that blessing that they have, right? So when people get really jealous, really envious, they might actually take steps to try and harm other people. That's why we're seeking protection in Allah. Because this is a feeling that you can't really see, right? People can pretend like they're happy with you, but deep inside, they may have these envious and jealous feelings towards you, and we can't see that. So we're seeking protection in Allah because we can't see that. And the other one is ghibta, which is the permissible form of jealousy. And this is basically when you want something that somebody else has, you're jealous, but you're not feeling like this person should lose it or this person should not have it. Right? So it's okay to want the things that other people have, but it's not okay to wish and desire and to talk to yourself about, I wish they would not have it, I wish he didn't have it. Right? That's the difference between the two. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لا حسد إلا في اثنتين, that there is no jealousy that is permitted except in two situations. Right? رجل أتاه الله مالا فصلته على هلكته في الحق ورجل أتاه الله حكمة فهو يقضي بها ويعلمها. That envy is permitted in two cases. And he used the word hasad, which is commonly used in the Arabic language, but is referring to what is called ghibta. Envy is permitted in two cases. Number one, a man to whom Allah gave wealth, and he spends it rightfully, and a man to whom Allah gave wisdom or knowledge, so he judges by it and teaches it. So the Prophet is saying it's okay to feel envious for these types of people, because they're doing good things. It's okay to feel envious for people who are doing good things in the sense that you want to also do those good things, but you don't want these people to lose that ability to continue to do those good things. So that's the difference between those two things. And again, the dangers of hasad, or this type of jealousy, one of the first sins that we find ever committed was the sin of Iblis, or Satan himself, when he refused the command of Allah to prostrate before Adam. When he created him and he told the angels to prostrate before Adam, and Iblis refused. Right? And why did he refuse? Because he was jealous. خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِن طِينٍ. I'm made from fire and he's made from dust. Right? So أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ. I'm better than him. So it was a combination of arrogance and also jealousy. Why should I have to submit myself before this? And also the story of Qabil and Habil, or Cain and Abel, we know as well. Qabil killed Habil because the two sons of Adam, right? The two sons of Adam alayhi salam, one of their sacrifices was accepted by Allah, and the other one, his sacrifice was not accepted by Allah. He was jealous, and so therefore he killed his own brother. So again, the type of jealousy which we seek refuge or protection in Allah is the kind that will cause other people to do harmful things to us. And that is the end of that surah, and these are the things that we are seeking protection in Allah from, specifically that happened in the nighttime. And because these are things that can cause harm to other people, and we can't really see. We can't really see because we're unaware of what's plotting is happening behind the scenes. So Allah is the only one that can really give us protection from that. And that covers the surah. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, next week we'll do Surah An-Nas. If there are any questions or comments, we'll take those at this time, inshallah.
A lot of time, when the part comes, is it right to wear the finger? A lot of time, our nafs itself has a lot of shar.
Yeah.
And when I feel that, is it the right surah to recite also?
Definitely,
I want
because
refuge from my own shar also at the same time.
Because you are also part of what Allah created. So the statement is general. I seek refuge in the evil of anything that He created, meaning anything that may have capability of doing evil. I seek protection in Him from that evil affecting me or somebody else. So definitely, and these are the surahs that are to be recited in order to seek Allah's protection from any type of evil. So definitely it would be appropriate.
We have these sorts of we can become aware of our own bad.
Yeah.
These are the good surahs to not only for.
It's good. Definitely it is, because it's also putting you in the frame of mind that you're reminding yourself that you have this ability inside you. So definitely it would be something beneficial. Jazakallah khair. Yes, Habib.
So you're saying that jinn gives the people magic?
The people can do magic because of the jinn. So we can't see the jinn, right?
Yeah.
So if there was a jinn and he came and he picked this up, you would think it was just floating by itself, right? Mm-hmm. Reality, what's happening is a creature that we can't see is just picking it up. See what I'm saying? And then I'm telling you, ooh, it's magic, right? So you're thinking it's something. But again, these are things that can affect other people, and they're used to harm other people, right? Because the jinn are real, they exist, they can do things, and they can interact sometimes with our world. And simple things, that can happen. People will think they're magic, but they're really just when the interference of the jinn into our affairs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the seven. So you mentioned something about 7 things.
Yeah.
Was to associate partners with Allah.
Yeah.
So we want to avoid that. During this holiday, during these times, you hear people say like "Merry Christmas."
Yeah.
And so when you respond back to them with similar greeting,
Yeah.
Do that put us in error?
So this is a point about which people or the scholars may tend to disagree, right? Again, if the phrase itself, Merry Christmas, what does it mean? It's the celebration of a specific holiday, which is the purpose of, or the center of a specific religion, the theology of which is, basically associating partners with Allah, right? So they're celebrating, they're celebrating a person whom they consider to be a partner with Allah. So in that regard, it's not really okay to participate in saying phrases like this, very easily. We should have some reservation with saying things like this, in the sense that this is not okay because we're not agreeing to what's happening. But there are friendlier ways to respond. There are friendlier ways to respond, but at the same time, we're not, our purpose is not to make people feel bad or threatened or scared or things like this, but we want them to at least, we don't want to be a part of things which are clearly belonging to other religions, because that's kind of promoting, in one sense, the act of that religion in and of itself. So it's always better to avoid it, and there's no harm in not saying it, right? So there may be some harm in saying something, people disagree on this, right? But we all can agree that there's no harm in not saying it. So we basically say, to err on the side of caution or to stay, keep yourself safe. You don't have don't say things like Merry Christmas or things like that. But you can wish them a happy holidays or have a safe weekend or a safe holiday season or so on and so forth, because those are very general statements. But specifically, saying statements that are related to other religions, the theology of which is basically shirk, which is associating partners with Allah. Then again, we don't want to make ourselves a part of that unnecessarily. See what I'm saying? So that would definitely be. And some people will say, well, I don't intend anything by it. I'm just saying it just to be nice. So, and again, it goes back to the person's intention. And Allah is the best of judges. We don't judge people based on whether they say it or they don't say it. But I would advise people not to say it, just to avoid it, because it's safer to not say it. But Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Allah knows best.
But it's okay to say something like Happy Holidays, or not like directly.
Yeah. So Happy Holidays is more general. So I guess it should be fine. Inshallah. Yes, brother.
I have a question, but a comment on this, because I was listening to another Tafsir from another Shaykh, and it was last year, and he actually mentioned the same thing. He said that whenever we, a Muslim or somebody who doesn't believe in Christmas, says Merry Christmas, they don't mean that they are acknowledging that it is true.
Yeah.
They are just saying it in a way just to
be nice to the other
be
person.
nice with them and make them enjoy their holiday.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm approving it's okay.
Yeah.
It's rather just, kind of saying that happy holidays.
Yeah, and that's where the difference in opinion comes in. Is by what you're saying, are you actually, saying something like that, or what? And that's what we say. Allah knows best. Allah is the best of judges. People tell us Happy Eid, right? They're not Muslims. They don't become Muslims because they say that. But it's a slippery slope. Better to avoid.
But it's not like one of the deadly sins.
No, saying Merry Christmas is not one of the deadly sins. Yeah. No, definitely not.
I think one of the that hadith brother that is better for your religion. Halal is clear.
Yes, excellent point. Yeah.
And
excellent point.
And there's things between that, and it's best to avoid that.
Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس." Right? That there are the halal or the lawful things that are lawful are clear, and the things that are unlawful are clear, and between these are matters that are doubtful. لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس. A lot of people don't know about them, right? And again, this will be one of those things, right? So then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبَهَاتِ فَمَنْ وَقَعَ فِي الشُّبَهَاتِ وَقَعَ فِي الْحَرَامِ, right? So it's possible that if you start following these doubtful matters, you might end up in things that are prohibited, right? Like, so فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبَهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Whoever can avoid these doubtful matters, then he is keeping his honor and his religion, he's keeping it safe. And whoever falls into them may fall into the prohibited matters. Because they're doubtful matters and a lot of people don't know about them. So definitely, that's I think the perfect hadith here, to go here. That the lawful is clear, the unlawful is clear. Anything that's doubtful, it's best to avoid. Why? Because you're just protecting yourself, right? You're not saying it's this way or the other way, you're just, for your own sake, you just want to protect yourself. And that's the best response. Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
So,
Yes.
we have this, some people they say these two surahs in the morning and in the evening.
Mhm.
Now that also includes Qul Huwallahu Ahad,
Yeah.
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm in doubt right now why we include Qul Huwallahu Ahad
Yeah.
as part of these two, where there's no mention about that one.
Well, there is the hadith that came earlier. So these two are called mu'awwidhatan, and sometimes Qul Huwallahu Ahad has also been mentioned as a mu'awwidha, as a surah that is sought protection with. So the hadith that came up here, this is Sunan Nasa'i. The Prophet said to his companion, say, and he said, what should I say? He said, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq, Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. He mentioned these three surahs together. And he said, the people have never recited anything like them, or the people have never sought refuge by means of anything like them. So he included this surah with these two. So that is why, and the practice of the Prophet was at night that he would read this surah. We'll do that after we finish with the Nas. We'll mention some of the things that the Prophet did with the surah. One of them was that he would every night read the surahs, blow into his hand, and just kind of rub his body as a means of seeking protection from these surahs. So the Prophet himself included Surah Al-Ikhlas with these two surahs. Yeah.
One last question.
Yes, please.
Then a lot of time we recite these surahs, but it becomes a habit.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
mind is not really there at
Yeah.
sometimes. So, even though we continue our practice and stuff, do you think that the mind really have to be there for it's to be accepted, or it's
To be accepted or not, Allah knows best. But to be effective, yeah, your mind has to be there. Because if your mind is not involved in the whole process, then you're not even really, you're just kind of doing things haphazardly, right? You're not doing things with a purpose. So an intention and a purpose behind is what gives something power and strength. So, we can read Quran without even thinking about it, but we're still rewarded for it. That's fine. But if you want to do it as a means of protection, then you think, you have to put yourself in your mind, I need protection, I need to be safe, so I'm reciting these surahs. And then they will have the intended effect. So the intention and the purpose has to be there in order for the effect to be there. But merely reciting this, of course, you're going to get the reward for, saying beneficial things other than saying other things you could have said. The reward you will always get. But the effect will come with the intention and that purpose, what you're doing, inshallah. And that's like with everything that we do. With everything, if the intention and purpose is there, then you have an effect. Yeah. Inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. جزاكم الله خير.